"No noble man will ever want you," said the stepmother, but the most desired duke made her his bride. The first time anyone ever told Eleanor Ashford she was unlovable, she was only 8. The last time she heard it was this morning. The words floated through the grand corridors of Ashford Manor like smoke, poisonous, lingering, impossible to ignore. "No noble man will ever want you." Her stepmother's voice rose again, sharp and cold as winter metal. "Not with that timid nature, not with that forgettable face, not with your blood." Eleanor stood there, her hands trembling around the tray she carried, trying not to let the words carve new wounds into old scars. She had learned long ago that silence was her only defense. Silence and endurance. But today, something felt different. The air in the manor was too still, too charged, as if fate itself was holding its breath. For tonight was a winter solstice ball, an event her stepmother, Lady Beatrice, had been preparing for as if the entire future of the empire depended on it. Rich fabrics draped every corner of the house. Servants rushed like restless thorns. Candles burned from dawn, their fragrance thick and sweet. Beatrice planned to present her 2 daughters, Charlotte and Victoria, to the most influential families in Essex. Both were dressed like porcelain dolls, dripping in pearls and entitlement. Eleanor, of course, was not meant to be seen. "Back to your quarters," Beatrice snapped, flicking her wrist as though dismissing a stray breeze. "And do not wander. If anyone spots you, I will ensure you pay dearly." Eleanor bowed her head. "Yes, my lady." But as she turned, something inside her cracked. Quietly, painfully, not rebellion, not defiance, just longing for a world she had only tasted in dreams. A world where she wasn't hidden, a world where she wasn't a burden, a world where anyone might look at her and actually see her. The manor doors burst open then, letting in a gust of wind and the muffled rumble of carriages arriving outside. Laughter and music spilled into the foyer, warm and intoxicating. And at that moment, Eleanor's entire fate shifted, because among the arriving guests, stepping out of a sleek black carriage, tall and commanding in his tailor coat, stood His Grace, Alexander Hawthorne, the Duke of Wexford, the man every noble daughter prayed to capture. The man is rumored to be cold, untouchable, immune to flirtations and beauty. The man whose power stretched farther than the Queen's gossip network. He had never once attended the Ashford events, not until tonight, and he did not glance at Charlotte, nor Victoria, nor her glittering stepmother. His gaze, unexpected, sharp, unsettling, swept past them all and landed directly on Eleanor. Just a second, just a breath. But that was all it took to alter the course of destiny. Eleanor froze, her heart buckling against her ribs. She didn't curtsy. She couldn't. She didn't breathe. She didn't look away. There was something in his stare that felt too aware, too focused, too curious, as if he were trying to recognize a soul he had never met. Beatrice noticed, and her fury rose like a silent storm. Before Eleanor could move, a hand clamped onto her wrist, sharp, punishing. "Inside," Beatrice hissed. "Now!" She dragged Eleanor down the corridor, nails digging into her skin, humiliation burning through her like fever. "You foolish girl," Beatrice spat once they were alone. "If the Duke saw you, if anyone saw you, it would only cheapen this family's name. Do you understand?" Eleanor swallowed, her voice a thread. I didn't do anything. You exist, and that is already too much." The words hit harder than any slap. Beatrice slammed the door and twisted the key from the other side, locking Eleanor away just as the orchestra began play upstairs, drowning her loneliness with violins. Eleanor sank to the floor, her breath shaking. Outside, laughter bloomed. Dresses swirled. Lives unfolded. And somewhere above, the Duke of Wexford paused mid-step, his gaze lifting toward the ceiling as if he felt someone missing. He did not know her name, but fate was already intertwining theirs with threads no stepmother could break. Tonight, destiny had been stirred, and Eleanor Ashford, the girl told no noble man would ever want her, was about to become the obsession of the most desired duke in England. The music above her room rose and fell like waves she could never touch. Eleanor sat curled beside the small window, knees tucked beneath her, watching the snow drift across the moonlit courtyard. The frost outside looked kinder than the warmth she received inside this house. Her wrist still ached where Beatrice had grabbed her. She lifted her hand, seeing the faint red imprint of fingernails etched into her skin. It throbbed, not just with pain, but with a quiet reminder of the life she lived. A life where her presence was an offense, where her existence was an inconvenience, where her worth was measured only by how invisible she could be. The soft echo of the orchestra floated down from the ballroom. Violins, flutes, the low hum of noble laughter. Eleanor closed her eyes and imagined what it must be like to stand beneath those glittering chandeliers, to dance, to be welcomed, to be noticed. Her mind replayed the moment the Duke's gaze had met hers. That brief second felt like a stolen flame in a dark room. Had he truly looked at her, or had her imagination been desperate enough to invent it? She exhaled softly. "It doesn't matter," she whispered to herself. "He belongs to a world I will never step into." A world her stepmother guarded ruthlessly. Upstairs, the ballroom glowed like a celestial dream. Lady Beatrice floated from circle to circle, wearing her sweetest lies and sharpest smiles. Charlotte and Victoria posed like mannequins, each waiting for the Duke to approach them. But the Duke was nowhere near them. Alexander Hawthorne had slipped to the edge of the ballroom, his expression unreadable, his posture rigid as though something unsettled him. He scanned the room again, deliberately, quietly, with the sharp intuition of a man who always found what others hoped he would miss. His advisor, Lord Westmont, approached him. "Your Grace, is everything to your satisfaction?" Alexander's jaw tightened. The invitations were extended widely, but I do not see the household complete. Westmont blinked. "Complete, Your Grace? I am not sure I understand." Alexander's gaze flicked toward the grand staircase, toward the corridor where he had seen her. But how would he explain the magnetic pull he felt towards someone he had glimpsed for only a heartbeat? He couldn't, and he wouldn't. Alexander folded his hands behind his back. Perhaps I am mistaken, but he knew he wasn't. There had been a girl, and she was missing. He continued, "And when I inquired about the one I glimpsed earlier, she insisted I imagined you, that you did not exist." His eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something sharper, protective. "I do not take kindly to being lied to." Eleanor felt her knees weaken again. "Your Grace, I'm certain she had her reasons." I am aware she did," he said quietly. "Reasons that benefit her. Not you." Silence swelled between them. The fire cracked. Snow drifted against the window pane. Her heart pounded. Then, unexpectedly, he asked, "What is your name?" She hesitated. "Eleanor. Eleanor Ashford." He repeated it under his breath, slowly, as though tasting it. Eleanor. Her name had never sounded so gentle, or so dangerous. He stepped even closer. Too close. And Eleanor felt something shift between them. Something fragile yet powerful, like the moment a storm gathers just before breaking. "Eleanor," he said softly, "I would ask you a question, and I ask that you answer me honestly." She wet her lips. "Yes, Your Grace." He held her gaze, unblinking. "Are you treated well in this house?" Her breath halted. Her pulse faltered. The truth trembled at the edge of her tongue. Just then, the door slammed open. Lady Beatrice stood there, flushed with fury and fear, and Eleanor knew her world was about to shatter. The chamber door crashed against the wall. Eleanor flinched. The Duke's expression hardened instantly, like a man shifting from diplomacy to battle in a single breath. Lady Beatrice strode inside with the practiced elegance of someone who had lied her entire life and had never once been caught, until tonight. "My deepest apologies, Your Grace," she cried, voice trembling in a tone far too dramatic to be genuine. "This girl, this servant, has clearly overstepped. I will have her removed at once." "She will not move." Alexander's voice cut through the room like a blade. Beatrice froze. Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face. "My lord," Beatrice stammered, "surely there's been a misunderstanding." There has been, he said coolly, and you created it. Beatrice's lips twitched, but she hid it behind a strained smile. Your Grace must understand. Girls like her confuse themselves with importance they do not possess. Girls like her. Eleanor felt a familiar sting. Sharp, humiliating, predictable. But this time, the Duke's eyes darkened. What is she to you? He asked Beatrice. Beatrice hesitated. Too long. A distant relative, she said finally. Barely connected. A burden, really, raised from charity. Lie. Eleanor whispered. My mother was your cousin. You are my only guardian. Beatrice spun toward her sharply, eyes blazing. Silence. The Duke stepped forward, and Beatrice immediately stepped back. Miss Ashford, he said, you are to speak when spoken to. Beatrice paled. He continued. You are her only living guardian? Beatrice swallowed. Yes, but she is difficult, ungrateful, disobedient, and unfit for the company of titled men. Is she unfit? The Duke asked slowly, or simply inconvenient? The room froze. Beatrice's mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing sharp, frantic rage beneath. Your Grace, I assure you, she hissed, this girl has nothing to offer. Not beauty, not breeding, not education, not. The Duke's gaze snapped to Eleanor's bruised wrist. Not safe, he asked softly. Eleanor's breath caught, shame crashing over her in a burning wave. Beatrice's face whitened. She bruises easily. Another lie. He looked at Eleanor again. Really looked. She felt completely exposed. Seen in a way she never had been. Seen in a way Beatrice had sworn no man ever would. Your Grace, Beatrice rushed. She is a troublemaker. A liar. A girl without prospects, without dowry. Enough. The Duke's voice was quiet. Too quiet. But quiet in the way thunder is quiet before the sky splits open. I asked, he said, for all daughters of this house to be presented. Beatrice swallowed. She is not of marriageable quality. And yet, he cut in, I found her here. Silence hung heavy. He turned to Eleanor again, slower this time, his gaze softer, but carrying a weight she could not yet understand. Eleanor Ashford, he said, were you forbidden from attending the ball? Her breath stilled. Beatrice's eyes stabbed into her like daggers. Your Grace, Beatrice began. The Duke raised a hand. She will answer. Not you. Eleanor shook, caught between terror and truth. If she spoke honestly, Beatrice would make her pay. If she lied, the Duke might turn away, and she did not know why that thought hurt worse. Eleanor, he said gently, do not fear her. Fear her? Eleanor had feared Beatrice since she was 8. Beatrice stepped forward, her voice sweet as venom. Eleanor knows her place. She will not embarrass this house with false tales. The Duke's gaze sharpened. Is it false? The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Eleanor whispered, I was not given a dress. Your Grace. No permission. Beatrice hissed through her teeth. Ungrateful little. Lady Beatrice. The Duke snapped. You will leave this room immediately. Beatrice's rage faltered. Your Grace, you cannot command me in my own home. I can, he said coldly, when your conductress graces it. Beatrice's eyes darted between Eleanor and the Duke, calculating, desperate. You, she pointed at Eleanor, finger trembling with fury. You will regret this. Enough, the Duke growled. It was the first time Eleanor had heard true anger in his voice. It was terrifying and strangely protective. Beatrice stormed out, slamming the door so hard the candle flame shivered. The instant she was gone, Eleanor's knees buckled. She clutched the edge of the table to keep from falling. The Duke moved fast, catching her elbow, not forcefully, but firmly enough to steady her. Easy, he murmured. You have been frightened for years, haven't you? Her throat tightened. Your Grace, please, she will punish me for this. He held her gaze with a certainty that shook her. No, he said quietly, with a finality that made her breath hitch. She will not. Eleanor trembled. You do not understand. She always finds a way. Not anymore. His voice held something different now. Not curiosity, not mere concern. Purpose. Eleanor, he said, his eyes locked onto hers. You will not return to that woman's mercy tonight. Her heart stopped. Your Grace, what would he mean? He stepped closer, close enough for her to feel the warmth of his breath. I mean, he said softly, you are coming with me? Eleanor's breath stopped entirely. She stared at the Duke, certain she had misheard, misunderstood. Why? Your Grace, she whispered. Leave? With you? I cannot. It would be improper. It would ruin me. He stepped closer, the shadows of the small anteroom shaping themselves around him like armor. You're already being ruined, he said quietly. Only not by me. Her heart hammered. She felt it everywhere. Her throat, her wrists, her knees. He continued, voice low and controlled. I saw the bruises. I heard the fear in your voice. I witnessed the cruelty of the woman meant to safeguard your well-being. His jaw tightened. That soldier's tension he carried like a second skin. No gentleman would leave you to her. But Eleanor swallowed hard. Your Grace, I am nothing. A poor orphan. A girl without dowry or position. You cannot simply remove me. A strange look flickered over his face. Not an annoyance. No pity. Recognition. You think your worth is determined by what you lack, he murmured. But I assure you, Miss Ashford, you have far more than society teaches foolish young women to value. Warmth shot through her chest so quickly she nearly gasped. What do I have? She whispered. He leaned slightly forward, not touching her, yet she felt the nearness like a physical force. Courage, he said. Restraint. Integrity. A spine of steel hidden beneath gentleness. Qualities I have sought for years and found nowhere. Eleanor stared at him, unable to speak, unable to look away. But, he continued, what you do not have is safety. Her fingers clenched around the edges of her borrowed gloves. And so, he said, his voice like a sealed decree, you will leave this house tonight with me. Eleanor trembled. Your Grace, I cannot simply walk out. There will be consequences. There will be consequences, he agreed. For them. He reached for the door, but she caught his sleeve. For the first time in her life, she touched a titled man without permission. His breath stilled. She instantly snatched her hand away. Forgive me, I didn't mean to. Do not apologize, he said, gaze sharp. Not to me. Her voice shook. Where would I go? What would become of me? I cannot, Your Grace, I cannot live under your roof unmarried. And you cannot risk your reputation on a girl such as... I can, he said, and I will. Eleanor's pulse thundered in her ears. Why? Why risk such a scandal for someone you barely know? His eyes locked onto hers, dark, intense, unwavering. Because, he said slowly, I cannot look away from suffering that stands in front of me. I am not built that way. Her vision blurred with sudden tears. But he wasn't finished. And because, he added, voice dropping to something quiet and dangerously sincere, I trust my instincts, and they tell me you are worth protecting. A soft knock cut through the charged silence. It was the Duke's valet. Your Grace, the man murmured through the door. Your carriage is ready. The Duke didn't look away from Eleanor. You may say no, he told her gently. I will not force your hand. But if you say yes, I swear before God and the crown that Lady Beatrice will never harm you again. Eleanor's throat closed. Her whole life had been fearful. Now, for the first time, she was being offered something else. She lifted her chin, shaking but determined. I will come with you, Your Grace. His expression changed. Not dramatically, not theatrically, but deeply. Something softened. Something resolved. Something claimed. Then gather what you own, he murmured. We leave within minutes. Eleanor nodded, dizzy with disbelief. As she turned to go, the Duke spoke one more time, quiet, but with a finality that made her stomach flip. Miss Ashford. She paused. Yes, Your Grace. When you step into my carriage tonight, he said, your life as that woman's victim ends. Her breath, shuddered out, and a life under my protection begins. She didn't know yet if that life would be safe or dangerous, freedom or another kind of trap, salvation or heartbreak. But she knew one thing: whatever waited for her beyond those doors, it would change everything. The snow outside deepened, cloaking the state in a quiet white veil, but inside the Duke's study, a storm gathered. Eleonora stood near the large arched window, fingers brushing the cold glass, while the Duke closed the door behind him with a soft click. The sound was gentle, but something in it felt final. "Come here," he said quietly. She turned, heart jumping. His voice was lower than usual, measured, unreadable. She approached him slowly. He studied her face, his gaze tracing every line as though he was memorizing it. His hand lifted, brushing a loose curl from her cheek. "You must never allow those women to see you break," he murmured. "Not your stepmother, not your stepsisters, and not any of the vipers who will crawl toward me now that I have chosen you." His thumb lightly touched her lips. "You belong here, in my house, by my side." Her breath trembled. "Then why do you sound as though you're delivering a warning instead of comfort?" The Duke's jaw tightened. "Because, Eleonora, the moment I announced our engagement, your name began to travel through every aristocratic salon in England." He stepped back, eyes darkening. "They will come for you, in whispers, in letters, in the papers. Some will call you unworthy. Others will call you a fortune chaser. And a few," he exhaled slowly, "will try to make you break before the wedding even arrives." Her fingers tightened around the fabric of her dress. "So I am a problem to them?" "No," he said sharply. He moved closer again, taking her chin gently between his fingers. "You are a threat. A woman with dignity is always dangerous to those who have none." A faint warmth spread through her chest, until he added softly, "And I cannot protect you from every blow, Eleonora." The words stung deeper than they should have. She swallowed. "Can't or won't." His eyes flickered, just for a second, and something inside her cracked. He stepped away, running a hand through his hair. "There are matters I must face alone. Matters that will not involve you. Matters that—" She cut in, voice trembling. "Am I already a burden to you?" He froze. Silence fell between them. Thick, suffocating, louder than any raised voice. The Duke finally turned to her, expression unreadable. "You are not a burden," he said quietly. "But there are truths about my title, my enemies, and my past that could destroy you if you stand too close." Her stomach tightened. "What past? What enemies?" His gaze softened, but his voice did not. "Not tonight." "Then when," she whispered, "when I decide it is safe." Her chest squeezed painfully. It was the first moment she truly felt it. The distance, the crack forming between their worlds. He was right in front of her, but his secret stood like a wall between them. Trying to steady herself, she lifted her chin. "I am not afraid," she said softly. "Whatever shadows follow you, I can endure them." His jaw clenched, and he looked away from her, as though her courage hurt him more than any insult ever could. "You shouldn't have to endure them," he murmured. Before she could answer, a servant knocked urgently on the door. "My lord, there is something the Duchess must see. Immediately." Eleonora's heart raced. The Duke turned toward her, eyes narrowing. "This is only the beginning," he said in a low voice. "Do not trust a single smile in this house until I tell you otherwise." She didn't know what awaited her outside the study, but she felt it. Someone had already struck their first blow, and whatever it was aimed to break her, not him. The servant's face was pale when Eleonora stepped into the corridor. He bowed quickly, avoiding her eyes. "This way, my lady," he murmured. The Duke walked behind her, silent, tense, alert. Their footsteps echoed across the marble floor until the servant stopped beside a small table in the hallway. A single envelope lay upon it, cream-colored paper, thick, expensive, the kind aristocrats used to send invitations or deliver threats. Her name was written across it in elegant gold ink. Lady Eleonora Rosewood. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it. The Duke didn't stop her, but his eyes darkened as though he already hated whatever was inside. "Who brought this?" he demanded. The servant swallowed. And no one, my lord. It was simply left at the door, which meant someone wanted it to reach her without being seen. Eleonora felt a cold flutter in her stomach. She broke the seal and opened the letter. The handwriting was beautiful, refined, cool. Eleonora, since the Duke insists on disgracing himself with a bride beneath him, it is only fair that the rest of society be informed of the truth. Your family's debt, your father's scandal, your stepmother's reputation, your lack of pedigree, your lack of worth. We will not allow you to stain the highest title in England, withdraw from the engagement, or the entire court will know the full details of your past before the wedding day. There was no signature, only a wax seal pressed at the bottom. A serpent. Her breath caught. She felt the words slice into her heart one by one. Debt, scandal, lack of worth. The Duke stepped forward and snatched the letter from her hands. He read it in seconds, and something inside him broke. Not quietly, not silently. His eyes turned dark, cold, murderous. Whoever wrote this, he growled, will regret being born. But Eleonora barely heard him. The words were still echoing in her mind, sliding like poison through every insecure corner of her heart. Is any of this true? She whispered, barely trusting her voice. The Duke froze. He didn't answer immediately, and that silence told her everything. Her knees weakened. So it is... He crumpled the letter in his fist. I do not care about your family's debts, Eleonora, or your lineage, or the vultures who call themselves aristocrats. But they care, she said softly, enough to destroy me. His jaw tensed. They will not touch you. She shook her head. Tears burned behind her eyes. But they already have. She turned away from him, clutching the sides of her gown to keep her hands from shaking. Her mind raced. Debt, scandal, her stepmother's humiliation, her father's downfall, her own lack of noble blood. Every truth she tried to hide, now in someone else's hands. The Duke reached for her arm, but she stepped back. I should have never accepted your proposal, she whispered. You said I would not survive the cruelty of your world. And you were right. His voice cracked with something dangerously close to fear. Eleonora, do not say that. Do not even think it. She looked up at him, eyes glistening. If this is only the beginning, how am I supposed to endure the rest? He moved toward her, but before he could answer, a shrill voice cut through the hallway. Well, it drawled. It seems we arrived at the perfect moment. Eleonora stiffened. The Duke's expression darkened. Standing at the end of the corridor were the last people Eleonora wanted to see. Her stepmother and her two stepsisters, smiling, as though they had known about the letter long before she did. The corridor went silent as Eleonora's stepmother swept forward, her skirts rustling like whispering snakes. Her stepsisters followed closely behind, each wearing a smile sharp enough to cut glass. The Duke's expression hardened into something dangerous, an expression that made servants look away and aristocrats tremble. But the stepmother? She had always mistaken cruelty for courage. My dear Eleonora, she cooed, stopping just a few feet away. Such a shameful letter to be receiving on your very first day as a bride-to-be. Eleonora's chest tightened. Her stepsisters exchanged delighted glances, like wolves who finally scented blood. The Duke stepped between them, shielding Eleonora with his body. Whatever business you believe you have here, he said icily, you have already overstayed your welcome. The stepmother's smile widened, sweet and poisonous. Oh, but your grace, I only came to support my beloved stepdaughter. After all, society can be so unkind to girls like her. Girls like her, the Duke repeated dangerously. She fluttered her lashes, pretending innocence. Girls with no pedigree, no dowry, no accomplishments worth mentioning. Eleonora flinched. The Duke did not. He stepped forward, his voice dropping to a tone that could freeze fire. Say one more insult, he murmured, and I will personally ensure you never step foot inside my estate again. Her stepmother's smile twitched barely, but she recovered quickly. Oh, your grace, please do not misunderstand, she said lightly. I only worry that you have been misinformed about her past, especially about her father's disgrace. the scandal, the debts, the shame she carries. Eleanora's heart cracked inside her chest. Every word was a knife. She couldn't stop. Her stepsister Clarice let out a soft laugh. And to think, our dear Eleanora will now stand aside the wealthiest duke in England. Imagine, someone like her wearing crown. Eleanora felt her breath shatter, not because of the words she had heard worse for years, but because the duke had gone painfully still, too still. Her stepmother saw it too. "Oh, dear," she whispered mockingly. "Did she not tell you everything?" Eleanora's stomach twisted. The duke's voice was low, too low. "What did she not tell me?" Her stepmother's eyes sparkled with triumph. "Why, her father's final scandal, of course." She leaned in slightly. "The one that destroyed her family name." Eleanora's blood ran cold. "No," she whispered. "Don't." But her stepmother ignored her. The day before he died, Eleanora's father was accused of stealing from the crown treasury. The words crashed through the corridor like thunder. Eleanora felt the world spin beneath her feet. "That is a lie," she rasped. "A lie you know is false." Her stepmother smirked. "Oh, and who will the duke believe? The daughter of a disgraced debtor or the wife of a respected merchant?" The duke's eyes shifted to Eleanora, just for a moment, and in that moment she saw it. Doubt, not trust, not condemnation. Just the fracture, small, but devastating. Her throat tightened. "Your Grace," please do not listen to her. For the first time since meeting him, he didn't answer immediately. Her stepmother saw the hesitation and smiled in full. "You poor thing," she sighed to Eleanora. "Even your own future husband didn't know, did he? How could he? You've always been so desperate to hide the truth." The ache inside Eleanora deepened, spreading through her chest like fire. The duke finally spoke, voice low but controlled. "Leave." Her stepmother blinked. "Your Grace." "I said leave." His voice thundered through the hall. "And if you ever speak about her father again, I will ruin you so thoroughly your own reflection will refuse to recognize you." Her stepmother paled, truly afraid now. She grabbed her daughters and stepped back quickly. But as she turned to leave, she cast one final, vicious glance over her shoulder. Secrets always rise, Eleanora, even the ones buried the deepest. They disappeared down the corridor. Silence fell, thick, heavy, unbearable. Eleanora forced herself to breathe, but her lungs felt tight. The duke turned toward her at last. "Is it true?" he asked softly. Her heart broke, not because of the question, but because he had needed to ask it all. Eleanora's hand shook as she clutched the edges of her gown. The echo of her stepmother's last words still lingered like a venomous fog. The duke stepped closer, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me, Eleanora. Whatever you've heard, whatever shadows they try to cast over you, they are lies. You are mine, and no one in England will touch you again." Her eyes filled with tears. Not of fear this time, but a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Yours," she whispered, "even with everything against me?" He pressed a thumb gently to her cheek. "You have endured more than most women twice your age. You have dignity, intelligence, and a strength they cannot touch, and it is all yours. Here, with me." Her chest tightened. I do not deserve." He cut her off with a kiss. Not a fleeting courtly gesture, but one that carried the weight of protection, command, and something dangerously close to longing. Her body stiffened, then melted into him. Every fear, every insult, every whisper of scandal was absorbed in that single, impossible moment. 3 days later, Blackwood Manor was a storm of activity. Eleanora moved the grand halls, her gown whispering across the marble floors, her heart both terrified and elated. The duke's servants watched her with a mixture of curiosity and respect, but none dared speak without his express permission. Every glance, every gesture reminded her that the world had shifted. The girl who had been invisible in London society now commanded attention by her very presence. The duke, ever meticulous, observed her from across the room. He wore his ceremonial black coat, crisp and imposing, yet his eyes softened when they met hers. No words were exchanged. None were needed. His presence alone was both shield and promise. The wedding night arrived. The manor was quiet, the guests long gone. Candlelight flickered across the massive canopy bed. Eleonora stood at the threshold, heart racing, breath catching in her throat. The Duke's silhouette framed by the window was both intimidating and breathtaking. He turned as she entered, his dark eyes fixed on her, analyzing, measuring, but not judging. "Eleonora," he said, his voice low, deliberate. "Tonight is ours, not society's, not scandals. Ours." Her knees nearly buckled. She had dreamed of love, of warmth, of belonging. Yet she had never expected a man who had seemed so cold, so unapproachable, to offer all that in a single, unwavering gaze. He extended a hand. "Come here," he said. She obeyed, her fingers brushing his as they met. Electricity, or perhaps fate, passed between them. Every fear, every shadow of the past seemed to dissolve in the certainty of his touch. And then he spoke, his voice soft but commanding, almost a whisper against the candlelight. "You will learn, Eleonora, that respect can be far more powerful than love. But love, true, undeniable love, is inevitable when two souls meet as we have. It will grow slowly, but it will consume all doubt." Tears pricked her eyes, not fear this time, but awe. The man she had feared would see her as a pawn now regarded her as an equal, a partner, a confidant. She stepped closer, letting her hands rest against his chest. The rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her fingers was steady, grounding, a silent promise that she would never be alone again. And in that moment, she realized something. All the cruelty, all the whispers, all the trials had led her here, to a man who had chosen her, not for her wealth, not for her name, but for her strength, her spirit, her authenticity. The Duke of Blackwood, London's most desired, most feared, and most mysterious bachelor, had made her his bride. Not a convenience, not a compromise, a true, deliberate choice. And for the first time in her life, Eleonora felt free. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Blackwood Manor, painting the grand halls in warm gold. Eleonora stood at the balcony, the soft breeze teasing strands of her hair, her gaze sweeping across the manicured gardens below. For the first time, she felt home. Not the hollow, oppressive home of Montgomery House, where her stepmother's cruelty had shadowed every corner. Not the ballroom of London, where whispers and glances had sought to diminish her. Here she was seen. She was respected. She was safe. The Duke appeared silently beside her, his presence steady and commanding as always, but with something softer in his gaze, a flicker of warmth she had only glimpsed once before. "Good morning, my Duchess," he said, his tone almost teasing. She turned, startled, then smiled, a real, unguarded smile. "Good morning, Your Grace," she replied, her voice lighter than it had been in years. He reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. "You slept well?" he asked. "I did," she admitted, a blush rising to her cheeks. "Though I hardly recognized peace until last night." He smiled, the faintest curve at the corner of his mouth. "Nor I. It has been far too long since someone has reminded me of what it is to feel warmth, to trust." For a long moment, they stood together in quiet companionship. No words were necessary. No judgments, no schemes, no social expectations. Eleonora finally spoke, her voice small but certain. "Do you think my stepmother will try to interfere again?" The Duke's grip on her hand tightened slightly, not in anger but in assurance. "She may try," he admitted, "but she will not succeed. Not while I stand beside you." Her heart soared, not with fear, but with hope. All the schemes, all the whispers, all the years of waiting and hiding had led to this. She had survived. She had been seen. She had been chosen. Weeks passed. Society's murmurs slowly shifted from doubt to admiration. Eleonora carried herself with quiet grace, the poise of a woman who had endured scandal, betrayal, and fear, and emerged unbroken. The Duke of Blackwood, ever vigilant, watched her transformation with something almost like pride. They shared books in the vast library, walked the garden side by side, and debated matters of politics, art, and philosophy. Affection, once thought impossible in their practical arrangement, grew steadily, like a fire rekindled in the hearth. It was not the wild, consuming passion of novels and gossip. It was deeper, quieter, unshakable. Every glance, every word, every touch carried the weight of respect and the gentle spark of love. And then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in pinks and golds, the Duke took her hand in both of his. "Eleonora," he said, voice low and certain, "you have changed my world. I entered this marriage expecting only competence, discretion, and partnership. But I found more. I found you. I found a woman who challenges me, inspires me, and yes, has captured my heart." Tears sprung to her eyes. I never expected this," she whispered. "You deserved it," he said softly. "And I will spend my life ensuring no one ever undermines you again. You are my wife, my equal, my love." Eleonora's heart finally knew the peace she had longed for all her life. She pressed her forehead to his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. For the first time, she felt truly protected, truly cherished, truly free. Months later, Blackwood Manor rang with laughter, not whispers. Eleonora's stepmother had faded from London society, her schemes undone by the Duke's decisive influence. Eleonora's stepsisters, humbled, learned what true respect and kindness meant. And the Duke and his Duchess, they continued to rule their household, not with fear or indifference, but with strength, wisdom, and love. Society may have once doubted Eleonora's worth, but now the world knew the truth. She was a woman of courage, intelligence, and heart. And the Duke of Blackwood, London's most desired, most feared, and now most devoted nobleman, had chosen her and only her for life. As they walked together through the garden, the sun setting behind them, Eleonora looked up at the Duke and whispered, "Do you think it was worth it, all the trials, all the shadows, all the whispers?" He squeezed her hand, a private smile touching his lips. "Every moment," he said, "because it brought me to you." And in that golden light, with love and respect surrounding them, Eleonora knew, truly and completely, that the future was theirs to claim. Reflection question. Have you ever faced a moment when the world seemed against you, but someone saw your worth anyway? Comment below how you think courage and patience can change fate. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazy or more intriguing as can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.